If you were ranked inside the top 25, you most likely lost this weekend. We had by far the craziest weekend of the college football season, and there is going to be a lot of movement in the polls this week. We had a lot of great games, including some crazy finishes and some upsets. With the wild weekend now over, here is my top 25 after week 7 of the college football season. Before we get to today's top 25, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on those notifications if you're new to my channel. If you're watching this video, odds are you love college football, and odds are you aren't subscribed to my channel, so make sure to subscribe to one of the best college football communities here on YouTube. Kicking things off at number 1, I got the Indiana Hoosiers. They went on the road and they upset the number 3 Oregon Ducks at Autzen Stadium, winning 30-20. And up until this point of the college football season, I think this is by far the best win. I also think that Indiana has the best resume in the country at the moment. You have the biggest win so far of the college football season, and when comparing Indiana to Ohio State, Indiana did beat Illinois by 53 points. Now, Ohio State did have a comfortable victory over Illinois, but Indiana dominated them, so because of that, and because of their better win, I got the Hoosiers as my number 1 team. And even though the Hoosiers have yet to lose a game, they've looked damn good so far this year. I still can't believe it. So that means at number 2, I have Ohio State. They took down Illinois, winning 34-16. Julian Sayin had an okay day as he threw for only 150 yards, but he did have 2 passing touchdowns. Ohio State's offense didn't look all that great on Saturday. It was their defense that really won this game for them. Illinois has had a pretty damn good offense so far in 2025, but they couldn't get anything going against Ohio State. Miami didn't play this weekend, so here's where I got them ranked. I feel like I keep saying this every week, but ever since their embarrassing loss in week 1 to Florida State, Alabama just continues to look like one of the better teams in all of college football. They went on the road and they took down number 14 Missouri, winning 27-24. Ty Simpson had another great game as he threw for 200 yards with 3 passing touchdowns. Meanwhile on the ground, Jam Miller added 100 yards. Alabama has now won 5 consecutive games, and they've won 3 straight games over top 16 opponents. I mean, if it wasn't for that week 1 loss to Florida State, I would honestly consider having Alabama as my number 1 team in the country. Texas A&M just continues to win as they took down Florida 34-17. Now, this game was looking a little bit interesting after the first quarter as things were tied up at 14 apiece. Even entering the half, Texas A&M led by only 1 score, but they pulled away in the second half and had the comfortable 17-point win. Marcel Reed threw for 250 yards and had a passing touchdown, while also adding 40 yards on the ground with a rushing score as well. Overall as a team, the Aggies ran for 200 yards and had 3 rushing scores. Now, things were looking ugly for the defense in the first quarter, but over the final 3 quarters, they held the Gators to only 3 total points. I don't have the exact stats for the final 3 quarters, but Florida's offense couldn't do anything against the Aggies. Ole Miss was on upset watch all game, and this was a very ugly win, but they pulled it out as they beat Washington State by 3 points. Entering the game, Ole Miss was a 30-point favorite, yet they allowed the Cougars to stay in this game until the very end. Trinidad Chambliss threw for 250 yards and had 2 passing touchdowns, while also adding a touchdown on the ground as well. For the most part, he did all he could, but the Ole Miss offense just didn't look as good as we've seen them in weeks past. Not to mention their defense really couldn't stop Washington State either. Had Ole Miss lost this game, this would have been the biggest upset of the college football season. Instead, they're still undefeated, and their playoff and SEC hopes are still alive. I got Oregon dropping only a couple of spots, as they did lose to my new number 1 team in the country. They fell to Indiana, losing 30-20. Dante Moore had his worst game of the season, and he went from the Heisman favorite to really falling a couple of spots. He completed 21 of 34 passes for 180 yards and had only 1 passing touchdown with 2 costly interceptions. Oregon's offense just couldn't get anything going. As a team, they ran for only 80 yards, averaging 2.7 yards a carry. I've been very high on this Oregon team through the first month of the season, and I did talk about them last week potentially being the number 1 team in the country, but they fell to the better team, and they need to have a really strong look in the mirror to see if they're worthy of being a playoff caliber team. I feel like not that many people were paying attention to this game, but LSU was quietly on upset watch against South Carolina. They ended up winning by 10 points, points, but at the half they were only up by 3. And entering the fourth quarter, it was only a 1-score game. Garrett Nussmeier threw for 250 yards and had 2 passing touchdowns, but he did have 2 interceptions, which allowed South Carolina to stay in this game. This was a massive win for LSU because if they somehow would have lost to South Carolina, their SEC title hopes would have been shot and their playoff chances would have taken a massive hit. Speaking of upset watch, there are a lot of people out there that are going to tell you that Georgia should have lost this game to Auburn. Auburn was winning this game 10-0, and it looked like they scored what should have been a touchdown that would have put them up 17-0. Instead, it was overturned, Georgia got the ball, they scored a field goal off of it, and they ended up outscoring Auburn 17-0 in the second half to pick up the 10-point victory. Gunnar Stockton threw for only 200 yards and didn't have a passing touchdown. He was also the leading rusher for the Bulldogs as he had only 26 yards, but he did have a rushing score. It was a very, very ugly and controversial win for the Bulldogs, but a win's a win. Going into Auburn and picking up a road victory is very difficult, and they ended up doing it. Texas Tech moved to 6-0 on the season, and they've proven once again that they are the team to beat in the Big 12. They took down Kansas, winning by 25 points. The Red Raiders got pretty much no production from their quarterbacks whatsoever. Baron Morton only completed 7 passes, and then Will Hammond came in the game and completed 7 passes as well. Everything came on the ground. As a team, the Red Raiders ran for just under 400 yards and averaged more than 9 yards per carry. Running back Cameron Dickey had one of the best games we've seen from a running back all season. He ran for 260 yards, averaging 12.5 yards a carry with 2 rushing scores. Like I said, Texas Tech is undefeated, and they're the team to beat in the Big 12, and they should be a favorite to reach the college football playoff. There were a lot of top 25 teams that lost this weekend, but there were also a lot of top 25 teams that were on upset watch that pulled out the victory. Tennessee was one of those teams as they escaped with a 3-point victory over Arkansas. Tennessee trailed at the end of the first quarter, and they were actually tied entering the half, but they outscored the Razorbacks by 3 points in the second half to pull off the victory. Joey Aguilar threw for over 200 yards with a passing touchdown while also adding 60 yards on the ground as well. Overall as a team, Tennessee ran for just under 300 yards and averaged 7 yards a carry with 3 rushing scores. Deshaun Bishop led the way with 150 yards on the ground and had a rushing score as well. I've talked about Tennessee a number of times this season, but they definitely have one of the better offenses in all of college football. The biggest concern with them is their defense. I mean, they allowed Arkansas to score 31 points, have 500 total yards of offense, and have 30 first downs in this game. If Tennessee doesn't get their defense cleaned up at all, they are in no way going to be a legitimate threat to reach the college football playoff. Georgia Tech is still undefeated on the season as they defeated Virginia Tech by 15 points. Haynes King had another big day as he threw for over 200 yards with a passing touchdown. He was nearly perfect as he completed 20 of 24 passes. He also added 60 yards on the ground with 2 rushing scores as well. Malachi Hosley added 130 yards with a score, and running back Jamal Haynes added 70 yards on the ground as well. I know Miami gets all the praise in the ACC considering they're ranked inside the top 5, but don't sleep on Georgia Tech as they're now 6-0 on the year and they're 3-0 in conference play. Oklahoma dropped their first game of the season as they fell to Texas 23-6. John Mateer played in his first game since he underwent surgery on his thumb, and it looks like he probably should have sat out a couple more weeks. He was terrible for the Sooners. He completed just above 50% of his passes for 200 yards, but he threw 3 interceptions. He was also a non-factor on the ground as he ran for only 5 total yards. I think Oklahoma is still a really solid team, but it was clear that John Mateer wasn't 100%, and he's pretty much the reason they lost this game. Virginia was on a bye this weekend, so here's where I got them ranked. Cincinnati won once again as they took down UCF, winning 20-11. Brendan Sorsby had a quiet day, but he did just enough. He threw for 200 yards with 2 passing touchdowns on only 12 completions. He also added 40 yards on the ground as well. It was a quiet day for the Bearcat offense, but it was their defense that really won this game for them as UCF had only 3 points pretty much for the entire game. A late touchdown made this look a little closer than it truly was. I know there are a lot of teams in the Big 12 that are really solid so far to begin the season, but Cincinnati is one of only 3 teams in the conference that is still undefeated in conference play. Notre Dame continues to claw their way back in the rankings as they won by 30 points against NC State. CJ Carr had another great game as he threw for 350 yards and had 2 passing touchdowns. Meanwhile on the ground, Jeremiah Love ran for 100 yards and had 2 rushing scores. It was a rough start to the season for Notre Dame, but they followed that up with 4 consecutive victories. Vanderbilt was off this weekend, so here's where I got them ranked. We had another team on upset watch as BYU escaped with a 6-point victory in double overtime on the road at Arizona. BYU was actually trailing this game by 10 points in the 4th quarter, but they managed to come from behind and stun the Wildcats. Bear Bachmeier threw for just under 200 yards with a passing touchdown as he added 90 yards on the ground with 2 rushing scores. Running back LJ Martin had 160 yards on the ground and a rushing score as well. Again, I've been talking about a lot of Big 12 teams so far in this top 25, but there's BYU sitting at 6-0 on the season and 3-0 in conference play. Missouri dropped their first game of the season as they fell by 3 points to Alabama. The Tigers actually had a chance to tie or even win this game as they had the ball with only a couple minutes left, but an interception lost the game for them. Bo Pribula was honestly pretty terrible in this game. He threw for 160 yards with 2 touchdowns with 2 costly interceptions. He was the leading rusher as he added 60 yards and had a rushing score as well. I think midway through the 3rd quarter, he had like only 50 passing yards or something like that. Throughout this game, the commentators were even saying, if you're going to win this game, you got to throw the ball down the field at some point. Missouri is still a pretty solid team. They're still in SEC contention, but this was a brutal loss for them. Also, I saw this on Twitter and I had to look it up just to confirm it, but Missouri has begun their season with 6 consecutive home games. I don't think I've ever seen that in college football where a team begins the year with 6 straight games at home. I mean, October is going to be more than halfway over, and they have yet to play a road game this year. Overall, Missouri plays only 4 road games this year. I guess 4 of the final 6 games are on the road, so that's a little bit difficult. But how do you get 6 consecutive games at home to begin your season? Memphis was on a bye this weekend, so here's where I got them ranked. USC had one of their more impressive victories over the last couple of years as they took down number 15 Michigan 31-13. I mean, the Trojans dominated this game on both sides of the ball, and this is the best I've seen USC look in quite some time. Jaden Mayava had one of the best games of his career as he threw for just under 300 yards with 2 passing touchdowns. Meanwhile on the ground, King Miller had himself quite the game as he ran for 160 yards with a rushing score. USC's offense looked really damn good, but it was their defense that allowed Michigan to do pretty much nothing for the entire game. Now, I'm not going to say USC is a legitimate threat in the Big Ten Conference just yet, but they've definitely exceeded my expectations, and I definitely think by November, they could be potentially in the discussion for the Big Ten. Again, they're not a threat as of right now, but they could be if they keep this up. It feels gross, but I got Texas climbing back into my top 25 after they dominated number 6 Oklahoma, winning by 17 points. Overall, I thought the offense looked just okay. They had barely over 300 yards of total offense. Arch Manning only threw for 160 yards and had 30 yards on the ground, but it was the Texas defense that looked fantastic. As I mentioned earlier in the video, John Mateer looked terrible. He had his worst game of the season. Now, that was part due to his injury, but that was also part to Texas's insane defense in this game. I mean, they held the Sooners to only 48 yards on the ground and only 1.6 yards per attempt. Texas still has a long way to go if they want to get back into the SEC title discussion, but this was a nice start for them. I got Nebraska entering my top 25 as they moved to 5-1 on the season with a 3-point victory at Maryland. Dylan Raiola had a pretty interesting game because at times he looked really damn good and at times he looked really damn bad. He threw for 260 yards, had 4 passing touchdowns, but he also did have 3 costly interceptions as well. Running back Emmett Johnson was fantastic on the ground. He ran for just under 200 yards and averaged 9 yards per carry. Nebraska is a pretty interesting team so far this year because their only loss was a close loss against Michigan, who isn't looking all that great as of right now, but they do have a very impressive victory against Cincinnati that came all the way back in week 1. Going on the road to win at Maryland, another solid Big Ten team, is pretty impressive for their resume, so why not? I got the Cornhuskers ranked inside the top 25 because of it. South Florida had probably the most dominant victory of the entire week as they took down North Texas 63-36. In this game, North Texas was actually favored because they were 5-0 and they were at home. Instead, South Florida dominated them and won by 27 points. Byron Brown had one of the best games we've seen from a quarterback all season long. He threw for 250 yards and had 3 passing touchdowns, while also adding 80 yards on the ground with 2 rushing scores as well. Overall, as a team, the Bulls ran for over 300 yards and had 4 rushing scores. I know their blowout against Miami a couple weeks ago really hurt them, but this has been a South Florida team that has essentially dominated every other team they've played so far this year. Closing out my top 25, I got Washington, who took down Rutgers by 19 points. Demond Williams Jr. had his best game at quarterback for the Huskies as he threw for over 400 yards with 2 passing touchdowns. Not only that, he added 130 yards on the ground with 2 rushing scores as well. Overall for the game, he finished with just under 550 total yards and 4 total touchdowns. This performance alone should put him in the Heisman Trophy discussion. I know I haven't really talked about Washington all that much this year, but after this victory, they're 5-1 and they're 2-1 in conference play, and they are in the discussion for the Big Ten. Well, that wraps it up for today's top 25. What were your thoughts on this week's rankings? Was there a team I had ranked way too high, or was there a team I had ranked way too low? Also, was there a team that didn't crack the top 25 that should have been in here? Whoever it is, let me know in the comments down below. Before you leave, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on those notifications if you're new to my channel. I'm posting college football videos all season long, so make sure to subscribe so you never miss a video. Also, don't forget to drop a like on this video as well. It helps out with that YouTube algorithm, and it helps share this video and my channel with more college football fans. Plus, it only takes a second to do. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you all in my next video.